If you would like to support Mercado Airwaves, visit us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. Find us on iTunes at Mercado Airwaves. Keep up to date with the show on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. You can see all of Nicole's work at typingwhentipsy.wordpress.com. You can follow Alex on Twitter at Mercado21Alex. Follow Mike on Twitter at mmercado2333 and on Instagram, MikeMercado2333.
What's up, friends? Mike here from Mercado Airwaves. If you missed any one of our past interviews with amazing guests like future Hall of Famer and pound for pound best fighter in the world, UFC flyweight champion Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson,
another day at the office, I get to go out there and test my skill.
To award-winning producer, director, and actor Orlando Jones.
Orlando, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, sir. I'm good, brother. How you doing?
And all the other interesting guests we've had on. Joining us today is director and writer David Ferrier.
Thanks so much, brother. I appreciate you having me on the show.
MMA legend Chael Sonnen joins us today.
Keep listening to your show. This is great. Thanks, my friend.
Just subscribe to us on iTunes at Mercado Airwaves. And while you're there, please like, review, and rate us, friends. It helps so much. We also have a Patreon for anyone who would like to support the show. Just visit us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves and see how you can get all of our interviews ad-free and before anyone else, and how you can get your business or company spotlighted on the show. Follow us on Twitter at mmercado2333. Like us on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. Subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/MikeMercado2333. And if you would like to see what we're up to behind the scenes, follow us on Instagram, MikeMercado2333. Thanks for listening and all the support.
What is going on, friends? Thank you so much for joining us here on this special edition of Sports from the Couch. I'm your host, Mike Mercado, and the Chicago Cubs have been eliminated by the Colorado Rockies in the National League wildcard game 2-1 in extra innings, in 13 innings, and we got a lot of stuff that we want to get into. We want to thank you guys so much for making us a part of your afternoon. A little bit special for all you guys listening to us on iTunes. There is a video that we are doing here. We're going to take a look at a bunch of different things, some contracts, some stats, some injuries, and some tweets and commentary that was going on during the game and after the game. And we really hope that you guys interactive. So, of course, if you're listening to us on iTunes, subscribe, like, rate, review, anywhere you get your favorite podcast. It really helps us out at Mercado Airwaves. Like us on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. If you ever want to see our videos like we're doing right now, subscribe to us on YouTube at Mercado Airwaves Network. Follow me on Twitter at mmercado2333 and on Instagram, MikeMercado2333. So let's go ahead and let's get this thing rocking and rolling. So yeah, I mean, last night was a hard one. I don't know how soon I'm gonna get over this this Cubs game for a lot of you guys. So on today's thing, the one I really just want to I want to talk it out. I want to highlight the positives and the negatives that led to this game, kind of what happened during the game, and I kind of want to get you guys interactive. So throughout the last few hours, we've been putting up a lot of different posts and tweets, and you guys have been awesome at putting your own opinions. So let's go ahead and let's start off with. I guess the one thing I want to start off with is the most hot topic is whether or not this was Joe Maddon's last game. I don't know, guys. I don't know. I understand. All right, so before we get into actual hard evidence one way or the other, or at least commentary about it, let me just give you my emotions of the Joe Maddon thing leading into, after the 13th inning and the Cubs losing this game. The one thing that I've always felt is Joe Maddon's one of the best managers in baseball, period. End of a story. I mean, what he did with Tampa Bay, what he's done here in Chicago, what he does with young players, people love him. The guy is one of the best managers, period. That he's not perfect, though. And there's a lot of scenarios where we've seen, Joe Maddon make questionable moves. And that's the thing, right? When you're in his position, when you're in that high profile of a position, things like that are going to happen. You're going to make decisions that are second-guessed. The problem comes when they're made and how they're made when there's so many different solutions, And, just for a couple things off the top of my mind, you have the Terrence Gore coming in for Anthony Rizzo. Well, yes, at that moment, yeah, you needed Gore to be the pinch runner in that situation. But not having Rizzo throughout the rest of the game arguably could have cost you that. Because he was one of the only hitters that was somewhat, somewhat accountable, somewhat reliable. in a hitting situation. And I'm not second guessing putting Gore in the game when you did. You had to. But you had a better opportunity with Ian Happ, who was coming in for John Lester. Ian Happ wasn't going to play on the position. And you still would have had Anthony Rizzo's bat at the moment. And in such a high leverage situation that was that 6th inning, that's big. Then you have the decisions of taking Kyle Hendricks out early in that World Series game, having a quick hook with so many of these different starting pitchers. Mind you, in the beginning of the season, and this is where it's such a frustrating scenario with Joe Maddon. Because arguably, this is the best season he's ever managed. And at the same time, the last 8 weeks, the last 6 weeks of this season have not been good for him. And of course, there's a lot of outside things that you need to mention. You know, his comments about Addison Russell, not the best thing. His bullpen use, not the best. But how can you blame him? You know? And there's some things we're going to get into a little bit later when we go on to the social media part of this about what a lot of the experts and people are talking about. Because I got a lot of angry Cub fans when I even brought up the idea. I didn't say he would, but I thought it's quite possible after that game, Joe Maddon might not be the manager of the Cubs anymore. And I understand it. You know, the first question is, who do you replace him with? It's a great question. The thing is, Theo Epstein has fired managers that have won over 90 games before. Look what he's done in Boston, and he still won championships. Can you name me Houston's manager? You see what I'm starting to say? Like, there's a certain way baseball is played with sabermetrics and all these analytical ways. And they're almost ran by the front office. Just like Houston. And you've seen it in Chicago. The difference is, when Joe Maddon was brought in, it's hard to get to second guess a 60-something-year-old manager that's won you a world championship after 108 years. That has been so beloved by the fans and the community and the ball players. Because he's a great manager. But you can be a great manager and make dumb mistakes. You can. And it's been an underlying thing for anybody in media or who just kind of keeps a close eye to things. You know, there is some tension between Joe and Theo. I don't think they hate each other, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they always are on the same page. No, I think they always have the same goal, but that's different than being on that same wavelength. We've seen it so many times. We've seen it with Theo Epstein, but we see it in sports all the time. But I want to definitely get into some positives about Joe. Arguably his best managed season. I don't think many people can argue about that. Think about all the injuries. You don't have Chris Bryant for so much of the season. All the stuff with Addison Russell. Your bullpen getting down. Tyler Chatwood. Yu Darvish. Joe Maddon pushed a lot of the right buttons. He did. But it just seems to me, and I'm no expert, but I know what I see, and it just seems to me that there's a lot of times that Joe likes to get cute, and Joe likes to be the smartest man in the room. And it's crazy. It's crazy that we're even having this conversation. But I guess the big thing that's going to come from this is there's a 4 p.m. press conference with Theo Epstein kind of addressing everything that was the Chicago Cubs season. I don't think we're going to get any type of for sure idea of what's going to happen with Joe Maddon. I don't. I think with him having just a 1-year deal left, how many and there is precedence to this because Theo and Jed did not sign their extensions until September of 2016. So quite possibly in the middle of the summer, Joe Maddon might sign a 2 or 3 year extension. But the question is, I don't think Joe is worried about it. In this, personally, I don't think Joe is worried about it because if he doesn't get re-signed, if they do fire him, if they decide to move on and he decides to go to the Angels or something, a team like that, because I think he's going to end up managing the Angels before he retires, there's going to be 5 teams ready to offer him something. And it's a great question. It's like, well, who do you replace him with? I mean, I honestly don't know if it matters because I could totally see this front office just kind of doing the plug and play. What does the computer say? It's worked for a lot of different teams. It might work for Houston and Boston this year. So, just interesting stuff. We'll see that later on today at the 4 p.m. conference. It's hard. And I never thought in the beginning of the season we would have this conversation, but there's just too many little things that make it not a possible reality, in my opinion. Some other positives, obviously Javi Baez. I mean, you can't, even in this game, he kind of showed up, but there was, it really just kind of was a microcosm of this season. And honestly, we'll see it in the schedule. This team just played a lot of baseball. They played a lot of baseball. I think it was 40 games in 41 days. They had back-to-back, essentially elimination games in your home field, losing both. Your pitching rotation had carried you for the second half of the season. Your bullpen was the first half. I think this team was spent. And I think it's only a matter of time until we find out. Chris Bryant said it in the postgame. It was only a matter of time, I think, until Chris Bryant. Some news comes out about Chris Bryant having some form of surgery. I think so. I don't know how bad it's going to be, but, that's something that definitely is real. But let's get off of, we'll break down this Cubs season a little bit more throughout Sports from the Couch. Paul Shivari will be joining us every week to cover the MLB playoffs. It's going to be some interesting series as the Rockies play the Brewers and the Braves play the Dodgers in the National League, and he'll have us all covered in the American League, along with a breakdown of the Chicago White Sox season. But I don't just want to rag all over Joe Madden. Look, let's get into some real numbers here. There was no hitting. This is a professional baseball team, and they did not hit the ball. Period. 2 runs in 22 innings on 9 hits. Even if you get past the Rockies, how can you count on this team to win a series? Now, here's the thing. I was trying to make every excuse in the world. 5 games, essentially 5 home games. You're rested. The Brewers have to prove it. But numbers show something different, right? And I'm always here preaching, what does Vegas say? Well, what does the trend say? The trend says the Cubs weren't going to do anything to begin with. This should not be out of the realm of possibility. You're seeing it in some of these highlights here. They were given gift after gift after gift after gift and did nothing with it. But we want to blame Joe Madden because it's the easiest scapegoat. I'm a victim of it. But you can't ignore what this offense didn't do. And you can't ignore the fact that while Wilson Contreras might be the most beloved player on this team, Wilson Contreras took a step back this season. Addison Russell has been not only a distraction of this team, highly disappointing as an offensive player. One of the gems in this game as a defensive player, no doubt. But as an offensive player, hasn't done anything for the Cubs this season. Microcosm. Ian Happ took a step back. And obviously, these are young players. I get it. Kyle Schwarber. Now, I was here arguing, we'll see it in some of these tweets. Kyle Schwarber maybe should have pinch hit over Jason Hayward. In this scenario we're looking at right here, on the where he struck out with bases loaded. We saw that historically in high leverage situations, especially this season, historically, Kyle Schwarber's been bad. But I know what my gut and my heart tells me. And in the postseason, with bases loaded, you're down 1-0 at home in a 1-game elimination, Kyle Schwarber takes the at-bat there. Now, yeah, some people are saying, well, he was going to get the at-bat later on in that game. Doesn't matter. You didn't know there was an at-bat coming up at that situation. You try to win now. This isn't a 5-game series. This isn't even a 3-game series. Now, I don't want to act, it's sports from the couch, guys. I get it. It's in the title. I'm saying this from the couch, right? But we're not crazy when you think that. Maybe, and obviously this is results-based opinion. I get it. But that to me at that moment, that looked like a mistake. Now, I'm not going to say Joe was wrong. I'm not going to say that because I don't know. But I'm asking this question. I want to know why it was Hayward in that situation. Hayward's had an awesome season. Shout out to Jason Hayward. People are going to hate on him. We'll see it in the contracts in just a little bit. But Jason Hayward had a nice season. It's not on him. He got hurt at the end of the season. This team ran out of gas. But that's not an excuse. Because when a good team, like we know this team should win that game. 16, they won these games. But since 16, and these long runs that they've had in the postseason with the injuries, and now with the controversies that you've had with Addison Russell, Aroldis Chapman, Daniel Murphy, it's a thing. It's a thing. But we'll see. And, not having Darvish, Chatwood, Morrow, it hurt. It really hurt. And we'll see what it means for the future of this roster. So we'll move a little bit into the rosters in just a little bit, actually. So what I'm going to do for all you guys watching us here on YouTube at Mercado Airwaves Network, we're going to move on to the contracts. If you're listening to us on any one of your favorite podcasts, thank you guys so much. Please like, rate, review, and share us at Mercado Airwaves. We're going to, why don't we check out, we move over to this right here. Yeah, let's check out the contracts for a little bit. So obviously Jason Hayward is the one a lot of people are always going to go to. I mean, look, obviously it's a big contract, going to go all the way to at least 2023. It's an interesting dynamic, because at this point you're just hoping to make up the losses that you're gonna get. Because for that kind of contract money, he's a stalwart defensively, but I don't know if he's a 8-year, $184 million defensive, Gold Glover, if that's worth it, But Cole Hamels has the team option in 2019. We'll see if the Cubs pick that up. I think they will, just for depth. And that's one thing that, a testament to this team, still winning 95 games with all these injuries and everything. But it's a testament not only to Joe pushing the right buttons when he did, but also the front office, and that's why it's so hard. Who if there is beef, I'm not saying there is, but in a weird scenario where there is beef between them, how can you choose? I mean, Red Sox fans had to with Terry Francona and the front office, but I don't know. Francona takes a team to a World Series eventually when he leaves, and Boston wins a World Series anyway. So I can't tell you. John Lester, obviously through 2021, at some point he can't be your ace anymore. At some point you need a true one. They don't have a true one, and they don't have a leadoff man. I don't know how much importance I put on that, because a leadoff man typically leads off once in a game, right? And then it's random the rest of the way through. So I don't know, but it is a need that they have. They haven't had a true leadoff man since Dexter Fowler. Obviously the Darvish contract, there's not much you could really say about it. He needs to be healthy, and he needs to pitch next year. Tyler Chatwood, another one. Big contract. 3 years, $38 million. Didn't get much from him this season. That's being generous. He sucked, and I hate saying that about a player. You're not signing Daniel Murphy. You're not paying a 33-year-old second baseman who can't move, who can't play defense. And then what you got him for was as a Cub killer, which was he was that, right? Did nothing for you in the postseason when you needed him the most the last 2 games. He was on that lineup that only scored 2 runs in 22 innings. So no, I don't think they're going to re-sign Daniel Murphy. I don't want them to re-sign Daniel Murphy. And quite frankly, it was a blemish to have Daniel Murphy on your team. This isn't even a social justice warrior thing, but it's like, if you can't read the room and realize that you're playing on the north side of Chicago at Wrigleyville, and you can't, kind of be a little professional. And I guess he was. It leaves a bad taste in my mouth, is what I'm saying. But a good ball player who didn't show up anyway. So you're not going to pay the 33-year-old second baseman to do that. Quintana who had a nice season. I would have loved to have seen him play the Brewers 3 different times, but he needs to become your 1 or 2. And now we're at that point of the contract after you've given up Eloy Jimenez, one of the best players possibly in the next 10 years. You got to, capitalize on that. But I will say this, the way Q has been pitching, I don't think he's going to be all that expensive comparative to some of these other guys. Brandon Morrow, 2 years, $21 million with a 2020 team option. He needs to be able to pitch, but we've seen it the last 2 years he's been injured. Steve Cishek, we saw, this is an interesting one too, because a really nice pitcher, but it's almost to the detriment of Joe Madden. He broke him, So, shout out to Jamie Garcia, who had a nice season with them. So, and then obviously a lot of guys in arbitration. This is the one that hurts. It was the Addison Russell one, and you saw it a lot. The difference between having Addison Russell and Javier Baez play second and third compared to Javi and Daniel Murphy is night and day. And it hurt that team. And yeah, Addison Russell hurt that Cubs team. And there's no other way to look around it. He's not the reason they lost, but he hurt that team in so many different ways, you know. Jesse Chavez had a nice end of it. So, Kyle Schwarber, arguably one of the historically worst seasons when it comes to a lot of different statistics that they've been pointing out over at The Athletic and Baseball Reference. The real question is, do you trade him? And what value do you get from him? I mean, we'll get a little bit into it right now. So, if you're trading anybody on this team, if there's pieces to be moved, they've all been devalued. You got to think about it like fantasy football. They haven't showed up. They haven't showed up in a few years. Kyle Schwarber, at one point, was considered not only an untouchable, but gave you the King's ransom. And now that, you know, he's not a liability in the outfield, some National League teams might want him. American teams, the league would love to have him. But you're not getting the same type of value you wanted from him. Addison Russell, you don't know whether there's going to be a suspension. Just everything that comes with Addison Russell, the ups and downs of his offense, he was somebody you could have got a prime time acquisition for. That's not a guarantee now anymore. Ian Happ is another one. Ian Happ, who took a step back this season, showed glimpses, obviously, because he's a talented young dude. But I mean, another one who could have got you a lot of nice pieces. And that's the thing. Like you want to. The key to this, and it's crazy, and it's easier said than done. It's not a video game. I get it. Is you got to not only try to win now, but you got to keep replenishing the next wave. And the Cubs went all in 2016 and tried to go all in 2017. And it's costing them right now. So maybe the bounce back is coming, but they only have till 2023, I believe, with Anthony Rizzo's contract coming up in 2021. So, and I think Chris Bryant, let me take a look, is through 2021. So when those 2021, that's it. Because you're going to pay him in 2022. There's a lot of people you're going to be paying. The window closes then. So then the question becomes, who do you want to play when this window's closing? Do you want to just bring in some other manager? The devil you know opposed to the devil you don't know? I'm not sure. That's a tough one. That's a real tough get for the Cubs right there. You know, and moving on to just what Joe did. I mean, you're looking. I wanted to get into this. Carl Edwards. I mean, the guy. We know he has all the talent in the world, but he fell off that circle of trust. That really hurt that team. Shout out to Pedro Strop too, with that BDE coming in and just dominating. I mean, out for 2 weeks and as if it was nothing. So again, glimpses. It's stuff you got to keep tabs on. But Carl Edwards Jr. just fine. Not even on the 1 game playoff. Not even on the roster. You're looking at Tyler Chatwood. I mean, in 103 innings pitched. Look at these. A 5.3 ERA. 62 runs. Yeah, it was a bad season. It was a bad season for him. That 95 base on balls. Come on. I mean, that'll hurt any one of your bullpens. That'll destroy a bullpen. That was a hard one. That was a rough season for that starting rotation to start off. And then Javier Baez, I mean, we talked about it earlier. It sucked that his last 2 weeks kind of tinkered off, but hell of a season. Nothing to be, there's nothing else but to give him all the love in the world. If you're a Cub fan, if you're a baseball fan, just some awesome stuff. And I wanted to show Chris Bryant 102 games. When the former MVP isn't on your lineup and he's got a bad shoulder, it's hard to win games, and you still win 95. That's why there's so many different emotions about this. I wanted to get into, for all you guys who kept asking about Joe Madden, it was on The Athletic, and Ken Rosenthal, probably the Adam Schefter of MLB, he's been on this for a while, that there is something going on between Joe Madden and the front office. And I don't know. I don't know what you can say about a manager that still won 95 games, that lost in a tiebreaker and in a crazy wildcard game. You could question a lot of his moves, you can, but it's hard, and we've talked about it, 2021 window. Can you trust anybody else? I understand that when Theo Epstein speaks today, we're gonna probably, swallow it up like a fish hooked on a worm. That they got this figured out. I don't know. I think you have to take into account just what this Cubs team had to do the last few weeks of the season. I mean, look at this. Look at the schedule. But you can't give them too much of a break when they lead the league most games with a 0 or 1 runs in the league. That's what teams like the Marlins and the Orioles. So how can you blame the manager when the team's not hitting? And how much value do you really put on a hitting coach? I mean, I think Chili Davis probably is more of a detriment than he is a positive to the team, because just look at the differentials between the Red Sox this year to last year. That's evidence. That's proof. That's stats that show that they're better without him. We'll see what next year means. But the window, the sample size that I have of 162 to another 162 is that they're better without him. And that's a Joe decision to bring in Chili. So, I don't know. I'm it's not whether I would get rid of Joe Madden. It's if they're going to. That's the question I'm asking. Whether they're the reason, if there's enough reason there to get rid of him. I wanted to go into social media, just kind of show you guys a little bit of what through. So thank you for all you guys watching us on Facebook Live and on YouTube. Like us on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves, and subscribe to us on YouTube at Mercado Airwaves Network. Thank you guys all for listening to us. If you're listening to the podcast version of this, wherever you guys listen to it, at Mercado Airwaves. Do us a huge favor, like, rate, review, and share us. You can also follow me on Twitter at mmercado2333. I'm on Instagram at MikeMercado2333. Please check out all our sponsors at patreon.com/Mercado, like Munch Art Design. If you need a graphic designer here in Chicago, like them on Facebook at Munch Art Design. And if you're interested in any of our interviews with athletes and celebrities, we're on Patreon, patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. You can hear the interviews ad-free and before anybody else. So this is just kind of the timeline of what it was. Cubs have one run in their last 14 innings, the last 3 days against 3 different teams. That's Gordon Whitmire. Joe Ostrowski, I mean, we might be wondering if Joe just got fired, and that was the Jason Hayward decision. David Haw. Why is Kyle Schwarber on the Cubs if not moments for like that one? Just passed, bases loaded, a playoff game, and a season on the line. Then I tweet, I can't believe I'm about to type this. Joe Madden might have just lost his job as Cubs manager. And then this is an interesting one. I'm not making this up. Minus 62, that is the number. 62 with a negative sign in front of it. You're wondering how that compares to the rest of the league. Here's the answer. Given a minimum of 50 high leverage plate appearances. So in high leverage situations, Kyle Schwarber has a negative 62. The next closest is a negative 3. After that, Chris Davis with a 9. He's the worst player in high leverage situations. And the great tweet to it, comment on this, like, counterpoint of why Kyle Schwarber was in that situation. Chris Emma, Jason Hayward was the only Cubs player on the bench who had previously faced Adam Ottavino with a single and 2 RBIs off him. Perhaps that was Joe Madden's thought. Totally could have been. 2 runs in over 20 innings. That's not just on Joe. That was for me. Bruce Levine, Cubs scored 2 runs in 22 innings in their last 2 games, lost 2 biggest games of the season. Who's that on? Joe Madden, I'm disappointed the Cubs are experiencing, this is from 670 The Score, our anticipation and expectation is to play the last game of the year and win it. And here's the stat I wanted to get to. Most games this season with 1 or 0 runs scored. The Cubs and Orioles tied with 40 games of scoring 1 or 0 runs. Coin flip games. They still won 95 games. Tell me again why this isn't frustrating or crazy or just so hard to really talk about and like put a eloquent thought together about. The Marlins had 37, the Giants 36, the Mets 35. I mean, it's hard. This is from friend of the show, David Foss. Cubs will get healthy this offseason, likely throw hundreds of millions at Bryce Harper and be ready for next year. Seeing two teams celebrate on your turf ain't going to be fun. They'll have purpose and motivation next season. And again, a lot of momentum is your next day starting pitching. You know? Jeff Passan, this is from John Lester. Sometimes you need to get your dick knocked in the dirt. They sure did. They sure did. Buster Only, most asked question among rival executive in recent weeks. If the Cubs get knocked out early in the playoffs, what will happen with Joe Maddon? He has 1 year left on his deal, and Theo Epstein is among the very few baseball operating chiefs with the stature to change with iconic managers. And it's true. It's literally what I've been telling you guys about Terry Francona. It's what I've been telling you about the underlying stuff that's going on. And it's not just little old me. Little old me. I know you guys only see me as Mike Mercado. The professionals on the top are telling you this. I'm not saying it's going to happen. They're not saying it's going to happen. Something is there. When there's smoke, there's fire. And I know we live in a polarizing world where people have to pick a side. There is no side to pick. Because we do not know how this is, where the guillotine's going to fall. If it falls anywhere. Just from Jay Zawalski. People will be twisting themselves in knots looking for someone to blame today. And while you certainly can question some decisions from Madden, the players failed to execute. It's really that simple. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's true. Here's a quote from Javi Baez. Javi, we're already champs. We won in 2016. Our fans waited 108 years, and this is only the third year since. We got a few more years to make it happen before 108. Then the reporter replies, actually, it's only the second year. Javi, the second, so we got even longer. I mean, I don't think that's the one thing about this team, though. I mean, it's a funny or cute or lame tweet depending on your opinion, on your side or your fandom, but it's not. He's not wrong that the core is there. It just needs some tweaking. How about this? This is from Paul Hem. This is from @PaulHembo. On Friday morning, the Cubs woke up with the best record in the NL and a 1-game lead in their division. 4 days later, their season is over. And a lot of people ask about whether or not there's going to be a 3-game series now in that wild card spot. And we'll see if the Yankees get bounced. There's a good chance because that's the catalyst you need. Chicago Cubs and a 95-win team and a over almost 100-win Yankees team, I think, getting eliminated in a 1-game playoff by Oakland and Colorado. I think that, and baseball loves ratings and needs ratings and loves October and loves Chicago and the Yankees. Yeah, they might need it. This is what I mentioned to you guys earlier. Bruce Levine, Cubs president, baseball operations, Theo Epstein talks to the state of his ball club at Wrigley this afternoon, right around 4 p.m. John Morrissey, Cubs likely to hold standard year-end conference later today. Joe Maddon's contract is not expected to be extended beyond 2019, at least at this point in time. Notably, Maddon's camp has not been requested an extension recently either. So again, I didn't even realize that, but it looks like Joe Maddon might not even necessarily want to be all in on this. Maybe he's got plans too. Herb Lawrence, I want to reach the point where Sox made their 4th straight postseason, and I'm furious. Actually, just give me an over 500 record, and I'll be smooth. Follow me on social media. You know why I retweeted that. Here's an interesting one from Jeff Passan. It goes to the Kyle Schwarber and maybe to the Joe's defense. The arguments in favor of LaStella and Hayward over Schwarber. They are better contact hitters. Schwarber has been historically unclutched this season, which we mentioned earlier. Cubs can use him later. And that's about all I got. That high time leverage spot seems like a no-brainer. And that's what it comes back down to, right? I don't want to argue with Joe. I don't want to discredit Joe because you can't. You shouldn't. But my brain and my heart and my gut tell me that's where you play Schwarber. Some interesting times, guys. I'm not too sure why. It's just crazy. It really has. It's unbelievable that we're at this point. But I'm not. I understand why. I understand why there's also optimism, but I get the frustration. I know a lot of people don't want to have that frustration, but it is one of those. It is one of those things. So why don't we go? I'm going to go through the timeline and we'll get some of your comments, okay? So this was what's on the Joe Maddon, me saying this might be his last game. This is from my cousin, Mikey Enriquez. Shout out, Mikey. Yes, he needs to go. This is from Brian Jones. George Girardi, Madden needs to go. Hasn't done anything to help the team this year. Like I said, I actually think he's had a really good year. But at that time, I could see the frustration. I could see the second guessing that would lead you that way. Josh Fox, did Bias just redeem him, do you think? I think a lot of times his players have bailed him out, but he's put them in good positions. This is from Ambro. Anyone who would call for the firing of a man who helped orchestrate a World Series championship for the first time in over 100 years for a team, and is also largely responsible for making the playoffs 4 years in a row for the first time ever, does not understand baseball. 100. Well, and I understand his sentiment. Joe Madden helped get a team to 108 wins. We've seen him develop teams. We've seen him take so many different teams to that promised land and win one with the Cubs. We know he's likable. We know his players love him. But to say that it's unquestionable, that not just his moves have put himself in a position to be let go, but his boss has done it before. And you can question a lot of Joe's moves. The fact is he had the MVP of the league on his world championship team. The fact is, he's had Jake Arrieta in one of the most unbelievable historic runs ever. He's had a young up-and-coming team that hit every single stride in 1 year. It wasn't like he pushed a lot of wrong buttons, especially in that game 7 of the World Series in 2016. I love Joe Madden, but it's not like he hasn't pushed the wrong buttons. Robert Evans. Joe Madden's not at fault for the way the Cubs played. If you want to place blame, let's blame the professional baseball players that swing and miss at pitches way outside of the zone. Gore, Javi, Schwarber, Hayward, Bryan. How many times did they bail him out, though, right? The pitching and bullpen and defense kept them in the game and many other games. But when you don't hit or score when the opportunity comes, you won't win. 1 run on 3 hits against Milwaukee and 1 run on 6 hits against the Rockies. That has nothing to do with Madden. You're mad at Joe, but you need to place blame somewhere. Blame Chili Davis. Last time I checked, he was the hitting coach. All right, but how much does the hitting coach actually have to do with anything in game? And these are still, like you said, professional at batters. They know how to make adjustments. The game is adjustments, and they didn't do it. But you want to go on Joe Madden? Look what he's done with that bullpen. Absolutely outworked that bullpen, and I get it. But there's also that having the quick hook. Joe Madden has a quick hook. And then we've already discussed in ad nauseum the whole Schwarber play over Jason, and having Jason Hayward play over him. But I get where you're coming from. You know, there's some people who are going to be on that camp, and especially in today's climate, there's no middle where you can see both sides. It's either you're going to fire Joe or you're not. I refuse to pick a side. This is from Robert Neisler. Some of the choices or some things he didn't do, yeah, he looks like a bad manager. Pretty much talent carried his ass for the championship. See, both things could be true where they won the World Series because of him and in spite of him. Both things can be true, guys. Why don't we keep going, see what else is going on with social media. You guys are very active. So I posted to give me guys your thoughts after that game. This is from Sean Anderson. Bye-bye Hayward, Chatwood, and Russell. Bring in Harper. Yeah, and we'll talk about that as the postseason and the offseason keep going. I think it's between Manny Machado and Bryce Harper. The Machado thing's a little interesting because of what's going to happen with Addison Russell. To have an infield of Chris Bryant, Manny Machado, Javier Baez, Anthony Rizzo, and maybe you move Chris Bryant to left field and you try to trade Kyle Schwarber, get some pitching. That's something. Matt Schellenberger, I'm already in trouble with over yesterday, so I'll just say good game. They tried their best. Next year is going to be better. So yeah, I mean, we'll see. From the show, Paul Chivari, I don't understand the criticism of Joe Madden's management of this team. Nobody could have motivated more production out of this lackluster effort from a beat-up team. Yeah, and we talk about it, right? It's been the theme of the show. There is no right answer about Joe Madden. There isn't. And we'll talk about it more, especially we'll have Paul back on the show in just a few days. This is from Cosalito. The Cubs were not there offensively. Lester did all that he could, but we just got cold. Joe putting in Hayward was definitely questionable. that was an important inning, crucial. You can look back in the season and nitpick things, but overall injuries played the biggest role in us not being able to go all the way. Also, for those calling for Joe's head, stop it. Stop being spoiled fair-weather fans. Yes, he made some questionable decisions, but he also brought us a championship and resurgence in Cubs baseball, an excitement that we hadn't since Sammy's days as a Cub. I trust Theo will make moves necessary to make next season better. And if Joe goes, I'll sure he'll have the next right manager to fill his spot. But that's the thing, right? I don't think it's fair to say it's that fair-weather fans are the ones that believe it, because I think it's a possibility. There is a difference between calling for his head and understanding there's a possibility that he can get fired. There is a difference about that. Joe Madden, there is no such thing as a player or a coach that can't get cut, traded, released, retired, anything. There's no such thing. We've seen it in all different sports. We see it gets ugly. Joe Madden's not the only reason the Cubs won a World Series in 2016. He's a reason why. Having an MVP is a reason why. Having one of the best pitching runs ever in Jake Arrieta is why. Having John Lester is why. Having Cleveland drop a 3-1 lead is why. Having Cleveland not having two of its starting pitchers is why. We can go all day about nitpicking, but these are facts. These are things that aren't fake. They're not stuff that's just drawn up from the universe. They're truths. Which is why it's a conversation not only we're having, but it's a difficult one in the spectrum of sports. But I get it. I then tweeted about whether now we're on the clock of the race to get Bryce Harper from David Foss. I know the Cubs practically print money, but $600 million is too much for both. You want Harper or Machado. I mean, that's the thing, right? You know you're going to pay Chris Bryant in 2021, but you have that new network coming up. I think if you win a World Series next year, that helps out everything. I would sign Machado. The sexier pick, like David says in this post, is Harper. That's a sexier name. But I would go after Machado. I think he helps solidify different positions, and it just, I think it's so much more of a volatile, violent lineup with him on it. So, yeah, guys, I think that pretty much wraps it up. You guys have all been pretty awesome about it. I see you guys watching us on Facebook Live. Thank you guys so much. Yeah, I mean, there's not much we can really else get into today. I really just wanted to get out there, get some of your thoughts into this conversation, and kind of just spill some of my my guts out here, I guess, to kind of just bring this thing home. And we'll talk more about this, obviously, in the next episode of Sports from the Couch. We'll break down everything that is to NL and ALDS, looking to the Championship Series and the World Series with friend of the show, Paul Chiavari. We'll obviously look into the NFL Week 5 and the preview Week 6. So everything will go back, and then we'll dive into the NBA and NHL. But, you know, at least for right now, 95 wins. This team was beat up. Lots of controversy. Lots of ups and downs. Lots of games. And it didn't fall their way this year. It didn't. I can't tell you if it's going to fall Milwaukee's way. I can't tell you if it's going to fall Atlanta's way, the Dodgers, Colorado, and all those killers over in the American League. I can't. We don't know. And we sure as hell don't know it in a one-game playoff. That's why you want to stay away from the coin flip game. And it bit the Cubs in the ass. It did. But you can't take away anything of this talented team and what this team can be, which is a nightmare to the whole league if healthy, if in the right spot, with the pitchers all there. And a signing here or there, it's a different team. It's a different league. It's a different outcome. But here we are, and it's going to be an interesting offseason. But we'll have you covered here on Sports from the Couch on the Mercado Airwaves Network. Thank you guys so much for joining us on this special edition. The Cubs eliminated from the playoffs, losing to the Colorado Rockies 2-1 in 13 innings, ending a 2018 season, and now we're on the road to 2019 to see exactly what moves are made, who comes back, who is gone, and what should be a very interesting campaign. Thank you guys. I'm Mike Mercado. Follow me on Twitter at mmercado2333. I'm on Instagram at MikeMercado2333. Subscribe to us on YouTube at Mercado Airwaves Network. We're everywhere in the universe where you get your favorite podcasts at Mercado Airwaves. Please do us a huge favor, like, rate, review, and share us. Thank you to each and every one of you who joined us on Facebook Live. Like us on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. Thank you to our sponsors, Munch Art Design, who power us here at Mercado Airwaves. Like them on Facebook at Munch Art Design. Check out all our interviews with athletes and celebrities at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. You can check them out ad-free and before anybody else. Guys, we'll be here to console, to be your therapist, to do whatever it is. But remember, it's just sports. It hurts right now, but it'll be okay. It'll be okay. This is part of the journey. This is part of the story of being a fan that's in it and trying to get a bite of the apple every single year. But since the season's over, maybe go outside, hang out with your family, read a book, do something. Otherwise, you can always catch us here, and we'll always be here to talk sports. Thanks, guys. Love you. We'll see you on the next episode of Sports from the Couch here on the Mercado Airwaves Network.
What's up, friends? Mike here from Mercado Airwaves. If you missed any one of our past interviews with amazing guests like future Hall of Famer and pound for pound best fighter in the world, UFC flyweight champion Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson,
Another day at the office, I get to go out there and test my skill.
to award-winning producer, director, and actor Orlando Jones,
Orlando, how you doing,
How
buddy?
you, sir? I'm good, brother. How you doing?
and all the other interesting guests we've had on. Joining us today is director and writer David Ferrier.
Thanks so much, brother. I appreciate you having me on the show.
MMA legend Chael Sonnen joins us today.
Keep listening to your show. This is great. Thanks, my friend.
Just subscribe to us on iTunes at Mercado Airwaves. And while you're there, please like, review, and rate us, friends. It helps so much. We also have a Patreon for anyone who would like to support the show. Just visit us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves and see how you can get all of our interviews ad-free and before anyone else, and how you can get your business or company spotlighted on the show. Follow us on Twitter at mmercado2333. Like us on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. Subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/MikeMercado2333. And if you would like to see what we're up to behind the scenes, follow us on Instagram, MikeMercado2333. Thanks for listening and all the support.
If you would like to support Mercado Airwaves, visit us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. Find us on iTunes at Mercado Airwaves. Keep up to date with the show on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. You can see all of Nicole's work at typingwhentipsy.wordpress.com. You can follow Alex on Twitter at Mercado21Alex. Follow Mike on Twitter at mmercado2333 and on Instagram, MikeMercado2333.